education represents to me much more than words can express. After serving 6 years in the New York State prison system, I returned to society with a new wealth of thinking. Not only did I want better for myself, I also wanted to redevelop my community and give back to the Scioto Street neighborhood. It is a community that I have taken so much from as my stint as a well-known drug dealer. I always say that I came back just like Harriet did, and I will forever be proud of that.
Yes, sir.
We are currently stationed in the heart of Market View Heights section of the city. It is also famously referred to as the Fatal Crescent, aka the Crescent of Poverty. Author Tanner Williams wrote in 2017 that this area in question was responsible for 75% of Rochester's murders between 2000 and 2005, despite the fact that it hosts a mere 27% of the city's population. Despite coming from the Fatal Crescent, I have a deep love for this community and its people. I have been living in this area since at least 1982, when my mother traveled here with me from North Carolina as an infant. And until an adult, I have never lived in another area of the city. I grew up on Wells Street. In our apartment sat one house and a church from the corner of Scioto Street. And just like most families in our neighborhood, it was a single-parent household. I was educated in the Rochester City School District, but not long enough to graduate, as I dropped out of school in the 9th grade, ultimately finishing my education in the streets. I started selling crack cocaine at the age of 15, and by the time I was 21, when most young men graduate from college, I was entering the New York State prison system serving a 7-year sentence with 3 years post-supervision release on parole. Growing up on Scioto Street, I am only aware of 2 white folks who lived in our community. One was White Linda. She was my... God bless her too, she passed away a couple years ago. She was my late grandmother, Rosalie Watson's best friend. She was also my brother's godmother. She had raised one of my cousins and often babysat for my mother. The other lady lived directly on Scioto Street. Her house was always kept neat, and it was distinct because there was 2 faces carved from cement in front of her home. She lived alone and never was bothered by anyone in the neighborhood, and would often knock from the inside of her window when we felt the need to sit on her porch. That was her way of telling us to go ahead. I attended Chester Dewey, school number 14 for elementary school. That was just across the Scioto Street Bridge from where I lived. From pre-K to 5th grade, when I graduated, I had only one black teacher. Her name was Miss Weston. She is also known by my peers as the most strict and disciplinary teacher that ever walked on God's green earth. She would pop our hands with a ruler, pull us by the ears when unruly, and make us sit in the hallway for what seemed like the entire day when we was acting out. It sounds bad in today's world, but she is the only teacher we talk about when we reminisce on our days at number 14, and we all wonder whatever happened to her. I got a chance to connect with one of her children not too long ago on social media, and was told that she now lives out of state and is an avid traveler. I also attended Monroe Middle School in the early 90s. There, I only had one black female teacher for 6th grade. In hindsight, I never had the luxury of a black man as a grade school teacher. I remember at Monroe Middle School, they had House A, House B, House C, and House D. House A and B was for the black kids. House C was for the Latino children. And House D was designated for the white kids. I would not realize this until I became an adult. My neighborhood on Scioto Street was notorious for drugs and violence. I know so many people who no longer are with us due to living a certain lifestyle or suffering from drug addiction. So many that the main reason I did not return to the streets, aside from my promise I made to God, is that I never wanted to sell my people poison again.
All right.
Now I know you're thinking, wait a minute, Miquel, we ain't here come to hear your autobiography. We thought we was going to talk about white privilege, right? I assure you that we are here to discuss white privilege. But instead of bore you with a long, repetitive history lesson of slavery, the Civil War, the Black Codes, Jim Crow, segregation, white flight, and the war on drugs, I give you a dose of medicine from the cabinet of my own personal life experience. You see that when the discussions come up, many forget that there are real black bodies on the end of a 48% graduation rate, poverty, poor health care, and a murder rate to the extent that since 1985, 29 or more people have been killed in the city of Rochester every year. We don't need a long, drawn-out history lesson today. Not in 2019. I get in a lot of trouble for being aware. And as a social worker, I find myself in deeper conflict because I no longer can live with myself being so-called aware without speaking up, especially if it is due to some sort of injustice. Dr. King was famously quoted as saying, "A threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." I strongly believe that there has not been more injustice or oppression towards any other group of people in the history of the United States of America than that in which has been dished out or dealt to African Americans that have been living here. Now some of us in too content of a manner since 1619. In the age of technology, when you can Google anything or get millions of pieces of information within seconds, making my new pet peeve is when people act like they need to be educated on the disparities between blacks and whites today. I say stop it now and stop it forever. It is either you know and understand for a fact that black folks are always at a disadvantage when compared to their white counterparts, or they are not. And if you believe they are, then the days are old for rationalizing, justifying, or attempting to make excuses. And if there's anything that I want you to take from this discussion tonight, is that black people living in America today are being oppressed by the same racist laws, practices, policies, and procedures in 2019 as they were in the late 1800s when slavery was so-called abolished in 1865 with the 13th Amendment. It's called institutional racism. It is ingrained in the fabric, and as my brother Howard Eagle points out so accurately, the DNA of every major social system in America. You name it. Criminal justice system, war on drugs, longer sentences for blacks, very few police officers, judges, and lawyers. Education. Suburban schools thrive. City schools, 48% graduation rate. Underfunded urban schools. Neighborhoods. High crime like the Fatal Crescent. Subpar housing. Ghettos. I can go on and on for hours about this, but there is no need because we already know. White privilege is the societal privilege that in some countries benefits white people over non-white people, particularly if they are otherwise under the same social, political, or economic circumstances. That is the key. If black folks and white folks are living under the same social system, America, why is it that there's so much disparity between the two? Don't answer that. Because you already know. It is now 2019 and these disparities have not just been sticking around for no reason or just by chance. They are continuously reinforced over and over again so that white folks can, in an unrelenting manner, benefit from social and economic privilege and also psychic reward. An example of psychic reward can be explained from using a dose of medicine from the cabinet of my own experience. I recently needed to speak to the CEO of a company I work for regarding my feeling of discrimination in the workplace. I took and still do take issue with white folks holding the most lucrative jobs in the company while black folks work until they reach their glass ceiling, the point that the higher paying position are reserved for white folks only. I was talking to her about my reasoning and discontent, and out of nowhere she says, "Y'all ain't gonna believe this." Out of nowhere, I ain't even asked her this. She said, "Well, a black person would never be able to hold my position as CEO because you would have to be Catholic."
Oh, what?
Oh.
Hello, somebody.
Not only is she immersed in the comfort of white privilege, but can you imagine how good she felt believing that? That is psychic reward. It is the feeling associated with being white and believing because of that alone you are better off than others, even if you are poor, sick, helpless, or even dying. My Uncle Glenn Powell always tell me, nephew, once you know, you can't go back to not knowing. And I think that is what happens to some white folks who straddle the fence in terms of their inherited privilege. Many denounce their involvement in establishing the American system that was created by their forefathers on the back of our forefathers, while in the same breath wallowing in the benefits of white privilege that is a direct result of hundreds of years of slavery and oppression.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, I wish not for a second for you to get me wrong. I am a man who understands, and I am not in any way, shape, form, or fashion suggesting that anyone that has some sort of privilege relinquish or give it up. I think that is another misconception white people have. It is the feeling that if others progress in society, they must digress.
Right.
And I don't think that's true.
Right. That's right.
As I said before, I love the city of Rochester, New York. And I am from Market View Heights neighborhood located in the Fatal Crescent section of the city. I came back here like Harriet Tubman did and opened up a business called the Reentry Community Development Center in the same place that I helped to destroy. I am not or will ever ask white folks to give up their privilege, but what I will request if I may. And on behalf of the broken ghettos that is always surrounded by prosperous suburbs, for every entry-level worker who typically works below wealthy white folks, and on behalf of every black child in the failing Rochester City School District that is polar opposites to the suburban districts, and on behalf of our many black ancestors who desire for nothing more as well than for white folks to use their privilege to help in the black struggle for liberation and true freedom. Because once you know, you can't go back to not knowing. My name is Miquel Powell. I come in the name of peace. I come in the name of God, and I come in the name of our ancestors. Thank you so much for letting me